And now Portland has a half-game lead for the 8th seed in the West. Dame wants everyone put some respect on his name. Also had this to say after the win. Take a listen.
How bad did you want this win tonight?
It ain't nothing I want more. Ain't nothing I want more. I told you when I first came here, I said I ain't come here to waste my time. I came here, they gave us a chance to get in like we asked for, and that's what we're here to do. Job still ain't done, but I said, you know what I'm here for. We trying to get in. Our work ain't done yet, but we fighting for it.
You got one more game left.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Thursday to solidify you guys in that play-in game. What is your mindset? What is the approach leading up to that game?
That's the most important game of our lives. You know, tonight was great. You know, this is what we said we need one win. We're going to focus on one game. We got this one done. And that's the most important one. We got to finish it out right. We got to come out with the same mentality we had tonight, get the job done. We control our own destiny, and we know what we got to do. So we got to go get rested, take care of ourselves, and get ready for the next one.
Thank you.
Ooh, locked in. Dame joins Wilt as the only players with 3 60-point games in a season. Nick, what did you learn about Dame last night?
Well, he is an all-time clutch performer of his era. We already knew that to a degree. His 2 buzzer-beating, series-winning shots, one more than a half decade ago and one just last postseason. But I would argue what he's done the last 2 games is more impressive than those 2 buzzer-beating postseason series-winning shots, because those were not elimination games. They were up 3-2 on the Rockets. They were up in the series on the Thunder when he hit those shots. Had he missed those, they would have lived to fight another day. Since Damian Lillard missed those 2 free throws and then the potential game-tying 3 against the Clippers, the Blazers are in perpetual game 7s. They lose a single game, their season is over. And how did they respond? Well, how did he respond? With 51 points in a must-win game against the Sixers, and then 61 points in a tour de force performance last night against the Mavericks, where once he came in the 4th quarter, he scored or assisted on every point the Blazers had except for one Nurkic layup. His 4th quarters of these last 2 games, you see it, 40 points. His free throws overall, since missing those 2 free throws, he's 33 of 34 and 16 of 17 in the 4th. The Blazers had to beat the Sixers. They had to beat the Mavs. They then have to beat the Nets coming up. And then in the play-in, they are going to have to win. They are all game 7s, de facto game 7s. And for Dame to go 50 and then 60 in elimination games, it is all-time great clutch moments, Antoine, from a player because of his market, because of his stature, and because he hasn't been a part of a great winning run with Portland. He gets overlooked when we talk about the 10 best players in basketball, Antoine.
I think Nick, you said a lot of great things right there, especially after he missed the 2 free throws, the way he bounced back and showed his separation as far as being an elite player or just being a very, very good player. He's a very elite player and one of the all-time most clutch players that we've had in a long time, especially in the NBA. He could arguably go down as one of the best clutch players as he continued with his career. But I think the one thing you got to look at from Damian that's been incredible is knowing that every game is a must-win situation, and he stepped up and take full advantage of it. A game like last night where C.J. McCullough did not show up, he continued to pursue on and put the team on his back, I think is huge. It speaks volumes. And I think being the small market, sometimes we don't get a chance to see Dame play a lot unless they play the Lakers and those type of teams on national TV. And now in the bubble with all these games, especially so many games on national TV, people are getting a sample size of one of the top 10 players in this league. I don't know where you want to rate them at as far as point guards. It's a lot of great point guards. But we're getting the opportunity to see Dame play finally with a healthy roster and how good they can really be with a healthy roster. I don't think it's going to take 51 to 61 points every game for them to win, but you're finally seeing this guy with a healthy roster, and he's competing at the highest level and got his team on his back.
And Wilds, just quickly here, Antoine and I have both said a top 10 player. And you joke with me and poke fun at me for how, list integrity and how seriously I take these rankings. But one of the reasons I get so irritated when folks just throw around the term top 10 guy is because here are 10 names: LeBron, Giannis, Durant, Harden, Kawhi, Steph, Anthony Davis, Russ, Dame, Luka. Those are your 10 best players in basketball. Rank them how you want. And so the NBA is in such a great place talent-wise that cracking that top 10 is so difficult. Nikola Jokic, nope. Joel Embiid, nope. Paul George, nope. But Damian Lillard, you can't make that list without it. And I think people had maybe forgotten that to a degree because of the Blazers' struggles so far this year prior to the bubble, because they got on their deepest playoff run with him there. They got swept out by the Warriors. And so people, I think, have disregarded what a special talent he is, Wildes.
I started writing down. I always get nervous when you start, if you're going to quiz me on your list later on. I try to have it always here and handy. Hey, Antoine.
Yes.
Outside of the numbers, which are his historical performance, the tenor of Dame's post-game comments, where everybody was happy and Dame was, really locked in. What was your takeaway from his tone and his forward-looking and his intensity in the post-game comments?
I think what you got to look at is he was one of the guys that didn't want to go if he couldn't make the playoffs. If he was just going to play regular games, he talked about before the bubble started that he didn't want to compete. And obviously Adam Silver did a terrific job of making this a very competitive bubble, and Damian Lillard took full advantage of. This is what he wanted to be a part of. I think the one thing that kind of worries me about his comments, it's all about just let me get in. And I hope that's not, just the only goal. And that bothers me sometimes. I think he's at a level right now, and when you got a healthy team, he shouldn't just be talking about getting in. He should be talking about we're going to get in advance and make a run in the playoffs. I would like to hear that verbiage come out of his mouth a little bit more than just about getting in. But I understand. I mean, every game is like a 7-game, playing in a 7-game. So you want to just get in the playoffs. But start talking about getting the playoffs advancing. You got a healthy team. Melo's playing at a very high level. CJ. Nurkic, you got some guys on your team that can really, really play. Start talking about advancing. It's just not just about making the playoffs.
Nick, earlier you said that the Blazers weren't getting in. We can look at the race for 8. Do you still feel confident that they're not getting into the playoffs?
Well, no. At this point, the Blazers have to be looked at as the favorite to get that 8th playoff spot. My stance all along has been whoever goes into the play-in game as the 8th seed is going to advance. I just think it's going to be so difficult to win back-to-back must-win games against a team that only has to win one. But because the Grizzlies, especially post-Jaren Jackson's injury, have totally fallen apart, the Blazers are in the driver's seat for that spot. Now, if, as I said, the Sixer game and then the game last night against the Mavs was an elimination game, as is the game against Brooklyn. Now, Brooklyn has played well in the bubble, but we all know they're without their best players. If the Blazers somehow lose that game, they won't even make the play-in game because at least 2 of the 3 teams beneath them are going to win their final game. So I'm not yet ready to lock the Blazers into the postseason. But now at this point, unlike prior, at any point in the last, at any point of the bubble, that I now do believe they are the favorite to make the postseason. But as far as Antoine's talking about advancing, Wildes, I do think it's worth noting, and this is nothing against Dame and what he's accomplished. He scored 51, and they needed every last point to beat a Sixers team without Simmons or Embiid. He had 61 last night including, we've shown the highlight, one of the most fortuitous bounces I've ever seen in NBA history. And that call, or that game, might have come down to a very questionable offensive foul call on what could have been the game-winning shot by Dallas. So that doesn't take anything away from what he's doing. In fact, it speaks to how important what he's doing is. But it does, in my opinion, speak to how dangerous or not the Blazers actually are. Because as great as Dame has been, he's not going to average 55 and a half moving forward. And with that being, they've needed that just to be alive with one game left in the bubble, Wild.
You know what? I'm this Nets game. I know the Nets are not fantastic, and if we can put up the graphic again, Nick, I think the Nets will really, really want these games. If there's been any flaw in the bubble, it's that some teams can kind of like take a breath. Where you look at the Blazers, they can't take a breath. You look at the Suns, they can't take a breath. But Milwaukee can chill out. Dallas can chill out, and the Jazz don't have anything to play for. You know that Brooklyn and Jacques Vaughn are like, oh, you guys are going on a head coaching search? Okay, we can knock out the Blazers, and that will be a big, big sort of like it'll just be a big win for him. Antoine, do you think that the Nets have some extra motivation to knock out the Blazers?
Well, the Nets, Jacques Vaughn's got that team playing great. He's fighting for a job. He would like to be the head coach of that team. He's got those young players playing at a very high level, and they're going to come and compete. This is where Portland has to take a stance, and if they're a veteran team, and Damian Lillard and Carmelo Anthony, those guys have got to understand the importance of this game and come out. I do agree with Nick to a certain degree. Damian has had to have monster games for them to win. The problem with Portland is that they're just not very good defensively. You got two marginal guys in your backcourt. They're undersized guys as far as guards. And then Melo is towards the end of his career. So they're not great defensively. So that's why you get into these situations, and that's why they probably will not advance if they play the Lakers in the first round, because they're not very good and they don't have enough bodies to throw at LeBron. But